This is Sebha, under the rule of Saddam, the forgotten gem of Fezzan since March 1977. The launch point of the Great Desert and the capital of Libya's south. A city where time came to a halt on the rails of bloody chaos.
المدينة التي تشهد منذ سنوات صراعاً مسلحاً
بين قبائل التبو والطوارق بالجنوب الليبي ليس وليد اليوم.
For more than 10 years, the city has been trapped in a relentless cycle of ethnic and tribal conflicts, laced with the poison of political polarization, terrorist groups, and smugglers. A decade of crises and challenges has only deepened amid an intractable stalemate. Fanned by money and arms militias and exploited by opposition forces from neighboring countries slipping across the borders. While smuggling rings and human and drug traffickers wove their nets amid an unprecedented security vacuum, ISIS's bat-like cells lay in wait with their explosive devices on every corner of the city. Together, they devoured the last fragile hope the residents had of living under a roof of safety and stability.
الصراع بين قبائل التبو والطوارق بالجنوب الليبي ليس وليد اليوم،
لكنه واقع مسرحه سبها في أقصى الجنوب الليبي.
فإن نحو 70 قتيلا و300 جريح نقلوا إلى مستشفى المدينة، غالبيتهم تنتمي للقبائل العربية.
هجوم انتحاري يستهدف إحدى البوابات الأمنية بمدينة سبها.
تنظيم داعش يعود مجددا للظهور في الجنوب الليبي.
عملية بدأت من سبها.
تمكنت الغرفة الأمنية المشتركة سبها
حيث قامت بقتل 15 فردا يتبع المعارضة التشادية.
All that chaos is now history, thanks to a rising officer in the Libyan armed forces who placed Sebha and the stability of the south at the top of his priorities, a man who transformed the very fabric of the city. He forged stability in Sebha and restored the lost hallmarks of security within its corridors, managing to set the wheels of reconstruction in motion despite the abundance of war profiteers, blood brokers, and crime syndicates. It was an extraordinary war, titled the Campaign of Lieutenant General Saddam Hafter to restore forgotten Sebha to the map of Libyan sovereignty. What we recount is no tale of fiction but hard truths and lived experiences of Sebha. Inhabitants in Libya's south, following an odyssey of bitter, protracted suffering. It began with problems rooted in geography and tribal rifts, then spiraled into quasi-states of rival gangs, diverse in ethnicity and ideology, yet united by a single ambition: to turn Sebha into the capital of chaos and a battleground for power and influence. Just 10 years ago, the city was careening toward the abyss like a fireball rolling down a sheer cliff, unstoppable, untamed by anyone. Mired in thorny, convoluted issues led by the curse of geography. Sebha sits in southwest Libya, home to some 500,000 people, serving as the first and largest stopover for those crossing overland from Sudan, Chad, Niger, and Algeria. Hundreds of kilometers of open border have been transformed from mere crossing points into gateways of hell, welcoming terrorist organizations and organized crime syndicates of every stripe and shape. Armed militias vying for influence and control, highway robbers and ransom seekers through kidnappings and killings, human trafficking rings and drug smuggling mafias, smugglers of food supplies, goods in kind, and fuel. The terrorist group ISIS and extremist cells infiltrating from Africa, fighting factions within Chadian and Nigerian opposition ranks. To them, Sebha was not a city, but spoils of war, a primary supply artery for their lawless operations and cross-border enterprises. On the surface, Sebha appeared unchanged. Beneath that facade lay utter catastrophe, a heated tribal war among the sons of the desert. As the militia tide swelled and smuggling rings, human traffickers and drug lords wove their nets, tribal confrontations erupted with savage intensity, spilling across borders when opposition forces from neighboring countries, their rebellions rooted in tribal loyalties, pitched camps on Sebha's very outskirts. All that unfolded in the past happened under a complete absence of security forces, police, and state institutions. Meanwhile, Sebha was sinking into a whirlpool of lawlessness and worsening living conditions, its citizens increasingly marginalized amid acute shortages of healthcare, education, and even basic humanitarian aid. But the reality has been utterly transformed. There was no magic wand or genie emerging from an ancient lamp, only a special military aircraft that touched down on Sebha's soil on the last evening of Ramadan. A rising officer in the Libyan armed forces, he leads the backbone of the Libyan army and succeeded in dismantling the curse of geography and open borders that fueled neighboring wars. He plunged into the heart of Sebha's brutal tribal conflict, snuffed out the fuse of clan disputes, and, with unwavering will, meticulous planning, in-depth field assessment, and continuous oversight of security and military operations over 22 months, entirely transformed the landscape of Sebha and the south. Lieutenant General Saddam Hafter achieved the impossible. He turned the city's sands from a battlefield teeming with clashing militias, gangs, bandits, smugglers, and external opposition forces into a geographic haven where the wheels of reconstruction and renewal spin, safeguarded by a network of security operations rooms and steadfast law enforcement agencies. That moment stood as the proclamation of Libya's sovereignty, triumphant over the mini-states of chaos. Saddam Hafter. From the desert's chaos to enduring security, penetrating the heart of Sebha was like performing open, heart surgery on a patient who had been bleeding for years. One wrong move could kill the patient and ignite a relentless, all-consuming war. Yet since 2023, the Chief of Staff of the Land Forces has undertaken the South's stabilization operation with exceptional professionalism and unwavering confidence. He launched a series of back-to-back field tours across the oil fields in the far southwest, securing them and removing the Libyans' lifeline from the conflict equation that had besieged the region for more than 12 years. Next, the General Staff of the Land Forces, under the leadership of rising General Saddam Hafter, that declared war on the open borders and the pockets of smuggling militias, human and drug traffickers, and organized crime syndicates deep within the sprawling desert of Tragan, Murzouk, Ghat, al-Aranib, and beyond, severing their tentacles and isolating them from Sebha. Months of fierce engagements cleared the path for the decisive campaign to sever cross-border tentacles, striking deep into the desert at the positions, camps, and encampments of Chadian and Nigerian opposition forces threading Libya's southern frontier. Before the general even penetrated Sebha's core, he established a joint security committee, bringing together the land forces, military police, intelligence agencies, and the Interior Ministry's police under the Libyan government. It was a preemptive masterstroke designed to coordinate operations, set clear objectives, and restore order, deploying permanent police units to govern the city, safeguard its security, and return peace to its streets in tandem with the forthcoming military operations of the land forces. Media, sedition. From the very moment Lieutenant General Saddam Hafter touched down in Sebha, under the guise of routine military procedures, the ink of sedition began to flow. Media outlets, bankrolled at home and abroad, spun tales of his southern maneuvers. They ballooned into a full-blown publicity campaign for militias, brigades, and massed troops, supposedly poised to launch a phantom war under cartoonish banners and nebulous titles: Protection of the South, Liberation of the South, Southern Deterrence Forces, and the South Security Apparatus. Yet as the Land Forces Command advanced, with unwavering steps to restore stability to Sebha and the South, the blaring horns of propaganda were swiftly silenced. The very images and videos streaming from the region laid bare their lies and stripped away the veneer of their claims. Dozens of smugglers and hundreds of undocumented migrants were rounded up in a series of security operations that launched from Sebha and swept through Ubari, Tragan, and Murzuk. The dozens of prisoners and armored vehicles belonging to Chadian and Nigerian opposition fighters and commanders fell, one after one, into the grip of Land Forces units. Across the southern front, the Joint Security Committee waged its own shadow war of intelligence, unveiling hidden warehouses piled high with hundreds of tons of grain and narcotics, bound for both domestic markets and cross-border smuggling lanes. At the same time, the military police swept through clandestine lairs and depots of fuel tankers, uncovering stockpiles of food and provisions, each cache a testament to the illicit trade they were poised to dispatch. What unfolded in Sebha was a grand design of security, military order, and nation building, uniting every son of the South under the shield of their army. The revival of forgotten Sebha, after years of marginalization and the void left by the absent state and its institutions, stood as a true rebirth, a rescue mission from the very heart of hell. From the dust of war to the grand halls of peace. From day one, Lieutenant General Saddam Hafter grasped the enormity of his task, knowing that driving the South toward stability was no fleeting spectacle, to be wrapped up in a day or two for the cameras, as security sweeps in smaller, less daunting western regions might be kai. Rising the Rise General understood that crafting and sustaining security demanded a full-scale military blueprint and a cohesive security vision, harmonized with intelligence operations, executed in multiple phases, under clear objectives, disciplined timelines, and with the steadfast arms to re-anchor the South on the map of stability. It was no mere display of force or assertion of dominance, but a decisive battle, a battle of will to reclaim the state's sovereignty and a war on chaos to forge true security. It was a purely national mission that rebuilt the bond of trust between the citizen and the nation's guardians, instilling in the people of the South an unshakable faith in the Libyan army's capacity to shield them and secure their right to enduring safety and a dignified life, no matter how far they lay from the seat of command. The rising general always made a point of staying close to the unfolding action, absorbing every detail straight from the field. His final visit to Sebha, that marked by marathon sessions with military and security chiefs, battalion commanders, operations room leaders, and heads of security agencies, was the embodiment of his doctrine of field engagement. He spurned routine reports, insisting that true decision-making is born on the ground. He surveyed the flow of operations and the latest security developments, probed difficulties at their source, and shouldered the mission of dismantling obstacles and bridging divides, ensuring the South's safety, stability, and its steadfast bastion against chaos. Many were unsettled by the burgeoning stability in the South, and so they assailed the general's latest visit, seeking to warp reality and manufacture falsehoods. Their paid pages and propagandist pens spun tales of splits and clashes among security and military units, alleging these forced his first trip to Sebha, all while they studiously ignored the military parade he both attended and oversaw before the ancient Sebha fortress, mere 50 days prior to his most recent arrival. But the greatest shock reverberated in Ankara. On the third day of Eid, a private jet roared down the tarmac on an unusual voyage, from Benghazi's airport straight to the Turkish capital. The flight's route was itself a riddle that confounded every watcher. Then, on the following day, came the greatest shock. The very aircraft they had all tracked and awaited news of was carrying Lieutenant General Saddam Hafter in his capacity as Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar's envoy on a historic visit, the first of its kind after a season of estrangement and chill. In a high-level official ceremony, senior Turkish military leaders stood in testament to the moment, while a guard of honor lined the tarmac, awaiting Lieutenant General Saddam's arrival to be formally welcomed by Turkish Land Forces Chief of Staff, General Selçuk Bayraktar. A grand welcome gave way to a secret conclave and a special tribute to the Libyan general, followed by an intimate gathering with Turkish Defense Minister Yaşar Güler, the chief of the Turkish Land Forces, and senior military dignitaries. This gesture spoke volumes to Libyans at home and echoed far beyond national borders as images flashed and headlines raced, a profound silence falling over all in the face of an unprecedented event. Some Arab channels and foreign media turned a blind eye to the visit, while others relayed the story without grasping what truly unfolded, what really happened in Ankara, and what is on the verge of unfolding. Countless headlines have since splashed across the press covering the visit. Italian news agency Nova: Saddam Hafter makes his way to Ankara on the 5th anniversary of the failed assault on Tripoli. Türkiye Gazetesi, the pro-government, Turkish Daily responds, Saddam Hafter's visit to Turkey was surprising, strategic, and extraordinary. Al-Arabi Al-Jadid ventured to unpack the deeper symbolism of the general's visit and its timing, while Turkey's official Anadolu agency conveyed the visit's every nuance. The Eurasian Studies Center delved into its implications, outcomes, and the mutual interests at stake. French magazine Jeune Afrique likewise shouldered the task of dissecting the dimensions of Lieutenant General Saddam Haftar's visit and his role in shaping the new Turkey-Libya relationship. Meanwhile, the Middle East site speaks of a convergence of interests between Libya's east and Turkey, signaling the normalization of relations. Russian news agency Sputnik relays analysts' insights on Lieutenant General Saddam Haftar's return visit to Turkey, charting the contours of bilateral ties between the two nations. Across screens and television channels, the general's visit unfolded as an extraordinary spectacle.
تقارب عسكري بين شرق ليبيا وتركيا بعد قطيعة دامت 6 سنوات.
Milli Savunma Bakanı Yaşar Güler, Libya Ulusal Ordusu Kara Kuvvetleri Komutanı Korgeneral Hafter'ı Ankara'da kabul etti. Libya Ulusal Ordusu Kara Kuvvetleri Komutanı Korgeneral Saddam Hafter, Kara Kuvvetleri Komutanı Orgeneral Selçuk Bayraktaroğlu'nun davetlisi olarak Ankara'ya geldi. Milli Savunma Bakanı Yaşar Güler, Korgeneral Hafter'ı kabul etti. Bakanlıkta düzenlenen karşılama töreninin ardından görüşmeler gerçekleşti. Milli Savunma Bakanlığı görüşmeye dair fotoğraflar paylaştı.
Ankara ile Hafter güçleri kontrolündeki Benghazi arasındaki ilk üst düzey askeri temas gerçekleşti. Libya Ulusal Ordusu Kara Kuvvetleri Komutanı Saddam Hafter resmi ziyaret için Türkiye'ye geldi.
هكذا استقبل الأتراك صدام حفتر استقبال الفاتحين والأبطال.
A defining moment that recalibrated the balance both at home and abroad, striking like a political tremor within Libya and disorienting those lurking beyond its borders. It upended the wagers of power brokers banking on endless chaos and a raging conflict between the General Command and Ankara. Many had hoped to keep eastern Libya as their bargaining chip against Turkey. Yet the rising general's visit lay far outside their expectations, and beyond the reach of their crisis-mongering forecasts. Saddam, with uncanny regional insight, orchestrated dialogue behind closed doors until he reached safe harbor, laying the cornerstone of a new era, paving the way for enduring ties between Ankara and the General Command that will soon redraw Libya's entire portrait.